Hello, hello, hello. We are going to get started in just a few minutes. Actually, in about a minute. So if you're tuning in and joining me, I would love to see that you're here. So be sure to post something in the comments. And we'd love to see that. Let's have a look here. There we go. So be sure to comment or hit that like button so that I can see that you're here and we will get started. Hello, Dion. And we are off. Hello. I'm so excited that you decided to join me today for this exciting thing that we're doing. Happy at Home is kind of like, it's close to my heart right now because so many of us are at home and we're staying here and we're working on our stuff. Hey, we've got some great people coming in here and I'm seeing people I know. Libby says, hi, I'm painting as I listen. Libby, you could not be more on task with what I'm going to talk about today. So it's exciting. Sandy's here, Dion's here. I hope that you're staying healthy and safe. Yes, I have been totally taking this hermit lifestyle to task and it's been fabulous. So I'm super excited. So we've got lots of comments coming in here. Heather says, hi. Thank you so much for joining me. So the goal of these sessions is for us to be able to share the things that are giving us comfort during this crazy time in our life and also making us happy, things that we're really enjoying. And so that's the goal. That's exactly what we're here. Daniela says, good evening from Germany. We have people all over popping in to join us, which I love. So I thought I would start off by giving you a quick little introduction to who I am, just in case you don't know me yet. My name is Alice Bull, and I run the ScrapHappy membership group, which is a paid membership group for scrapbookers. We do a lot of fun stuff every month, but one of our signature things that we're known for are the load challenges. Sorry. We're known for the load challenges where we scrapbook a layout a day. We do this in February, we do this in May, and then we do this again in October. And I'm so excited. Our May one has been announced. It's not open for registration yet, but it is all inspired by the Beatles and it's called Abbey Load. So I'm really excited about that. But we do lots of other fun things within our membership. And I just felt that, our membership is so fun and it would be so good to reach out to others and say, hey, let's get together. Let's talk about scrapbooking, some card making, some other craftiness, and let's share our best tips for the things that we can do to bring a little bit more happiness into our life right now. Wendy is here from New Zealand. We literally have people from around the world. That's it. We got people here from around the world. That's amazing. Heather says she just got a delivery of wool to crochet the days away. See, we're all finding things that's a very comforting thing, right? It's very repetitive and it can be very comforting to sit and do that. My heart lies in scrapbooking. There's no way of getting around it. And I thought that I would share today one of the things that gave me the most joy with my scrapbooking last year. So any guesses? Any guesses? Do you have a guess of what that was? I'd love to know. Sandy says, I love seeing people from all over. We all come together over this shared joy, this shared passion. I hate calling scrapbooking a hobby because to me, it feels like so much more than that. But I think that, as we bring together, we're sharing our stories, we're sharing our lives, really, right? That's what we do. And that's kind of amazing. Like, and then we just call it a hobby. Like, so much more. So the thing that gave me the most joy in my scrapbooking, when I looked back, and I had a pretty good year last year, maybe not my top year for creativity. I didn't make my most pages. That doesn't sound right. I didn't make the most number of pages that I've ever created last year. I think the year before was actually that. So Dion says the Hawaii Traveler's Notebook. My Hawaii Traveler's Notebook was amazing. Why was it amazing? Because I used tons of watercolor in it. And whether you are a traveler's notebook person or you are a person that loves to work just on pages, maybe you're doing digital stuff, I think that watercolor is the kind of thing that all of us have the chance to kind of get crafty with and play with. But it can be a little scary, especially if we're playing with paintbrushes, right? Some of you, like I saw Libby said that she was doing painting today, but I'm not sure if she's using this kind of paintbrush or this kind of paintbrush. Whichever she's doing, I think that getting into using our watercolors or using any other kind of paints can be a little intimidating. It's like that's what artists do, and I scrapbook. That's at least how I felt. I don't know if anybody else has felt the same way. So I thought I would bring you into my little world and show you some of my fun stuff. And I don't think I have that book right. It's up there, I think. Okay, well, I forgot to bring that over here, but I brought some other examples over here. So we'll start with those. And I've got something set up with my cameras. Let's give it a try so I can show you what I've got going on here. Here, we'll run this. Oh, the color goes really bad when we start on this camera. Okay, so I'm going to show this page here first. And if I set it down, maybe the camera can focus. So you can see that I've done really simple watercolor. Obviously, this is some of that scrapbook paper. You know that stuff that we buy and then we sometimes like, how do we use it? That's this paper. And you'll notice that I tore it so that I could fit some of my watercolor in. And all of the pages in that book that I created were exactly like this. I just did a little watercolor wash over it. So doing watercolor does not have to be scary. You can see I just took some different shades of blue and just colored it in. Yay, I made it. Thank you for this, Alice. You are so welcome. I'm so glad that you made it. I am so excited because this is easy, guys. This is so easy. Getting this effect, doing this kind of watercolor transitions where you're kind of creating like an ombre effect, that's not that hard. It's the kind of thing that is the perfect gateway into doing this if you're interested. So I thought I would show you that, and then I can show you what else you can do using that same technique. So on this one here, you can see I did this really soft. I really wanted my other stuff to pop, so I added just like a really, really soft coloring in here. And because I knew I wanted my layout to kind of be centrally focused, like wide here and then narrower at the top and bottom, that's how I painted my lines. And so it just creates this little background mat for the layout. And I think that that's a super fun thing and super easy thing, right? Because we want easy, right? We want it to be pretty. Exactly. Gail says it's so pretty. And we want it to be pretty and we want it to be easy. Like, I'm all about easy. To give me the stuff to cheat, I'm like, ooh, that's perfect. Like, you probably, if you've never met me before, I have an aversion to sewing. It's a thing. It's real. And I don't like to sew, but you know, I have found easy ways to bring sewing into my scrapbooking and into my projects. So there are ways, there are really great tips for that. Wendy says, I love this one. Thank you so much. So I think that's a really fun thing to do. I'm going to just show you this other one here because this is just awesome. I've done the same thing. That same little watercolory faded background. Sheila says, I enjoy using watercolor crayons. I find them easier to use than paint for some reason. They are so fun, and it's just easy blending. Are you using gesso? I don't. I am straight on my paper. I will tell you about my paper though. But if you look at this page and you look back to that first one that I showed you, do you kind of see how these work together? They're part of a similar story. They're not exactly telling the same story. They're not going to sit necessarily side by side in my book, but you can see like this paper that I tore for this page came in and added in over here. And this watercolor here, it doesn't go with that, but gosh, it goes all pretty when you actually bring all of this together. Do you use watercolor paper or just regular? So I actually use both. I use both. And this paper here is actually not watercolor paper. So just saying, there's a few things that you need to be very aware of when you're not using watercolor paper. It's gonna bend up like crazy generally. However, this paper here is called, it's from Creative Scrapbooker magazine. So if you're not aware, Creative Scrapbooker magazine, fabulous scrapbook or magazine about scrapbooking. It's one of the two that I'm like totally in love with. The other is Scrapbooking Cards Today. And Canadian Scrapbooker magazine makes the stuff called Super Stock. And their Super Stock is thick, it's heavy. Can you hear this? Right? Like you can hear how good that paper is. I think that's amazing. And with this paper, it gives you the chance to do things that have a little more texture, or they'll take a little bit of water. It's not going to be perfect with water. It's not watercolor paper, but it is going to be pretty good. So Dieter says the Road to Hannah needs at least 2 pages. Oh my gosh. I probably did more than 2. I'm sure I did more than 2, but these ones had watercolor. That was totally an adventure, and we had the best time. Melody says I use the Vicky Bouton paper if I'm doing something heavy duty. Oh my goodness. I have seen Vicky's paper, but I haven't actually got my hands on any yet. So note to self, get that on my shopping list. The Vicky Bouton mixed media paper, fantastic. Okay, so let's put those aside and I will show you another one. This here is not watercolor paper. You'll see that this paper, I actually received it in a kit and it had the die cut out of it. So you can see the dark green that you see in the background is all behind the die cut. So this white paper was my die cut paper. And to kind of emphasize the flow of the waves, I really wanted to bring some watercolor on here. So even if you don't have watercolor paper, this isn't something that you are like, oh, I can't do that. You can do it. There are some tricks. So we'll talk about that. Amy says, oh man, it is so worth it. That's like the paper. Yeah, I know Vicky's stuff. I'm excited. I've seen her use it. I'm like, oh, I need me some of that. So yeah, I think don't be scared. This page is the perfect way to kind of look and see that you can do watercolor effects on pages, on papers that maybe are not ideal. We just have to be careful with the amount of water that we're applying, and we really have to be careful, really careful not to overwork the paper. So we'll go into that in a second. And even if that whole idea of watercolors has you a little bit like concerned, I got your back. I've got like another idea that you can do that kind of can give you a watercolory effect without the water, without all of that. And I'm just going to bring this one in here to show you. This is my Space Needle page, and you can see I've got the colors and it feels a little bit watercolory, but it's not. That's just ink straight to paper. That is taking your ink pad and going across the paper. So there are different ways of achieving similar effects if you're willing to play. And I just wanted to bring this out and put that in front of you just so you could see, like, in case you're like, water, paper, oh, I don't have this stuff. I don't want to, you don't want to get it wrong. I do have one really good tip for you. And I'm going to just like pop myself up here. I have one really important thing for you to think about. It's paper. And I'm guessing if you're even a little bit like me, that you have a little bit of it. And so testing stuff and playing with stuff and trying it allows you to do new things and to try new stuff and to learn new things. But it's just paper. If we don't like it, whatever, throw it out. Or we can do some other fun things. So the reason that I wanted to start with this today is because I actually looked at my pages and decided, yeah, I know, it's just paper. Deanna says, ooh, the ink to paper is a great idea to try. Yeah, it's so good. So when I looked at all of my pages I made last year, I kind of feel that this page is my all-time favorite page that I made last year. Let's get this thing to focus a little better. And, just looking at it, like, it's got watercolor on it. It's not the best watercoloring. Let's just say I am not a professional watercoloring person. Oh, okay. So I'm not a professional watercolorer. I do have a couple of tricks up my sleeve that I use, but I think that it's totally a fun thing to do. So if you have never tried watercoloring, or if you have, leave me a comment and let me know if you've tried it or you haven't tried it. Like, I'd love to know. Okay, what do we got people saying here? Yes, you can use it to make die cuts. That's a beautiful page. Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to know if you've done watercolor, what you've thought about it. Did you have fun while doing it is the number one question you should be asking. Exactly. Diane says, yes, and I made a mess. Okay, so I had a lot of fun with this, but I did not dream up this image. I cannot draw a whale from my mind. Like, I'm good, but I'm not that good. I know in my head what a whale tail should look like. I have that kind of somewhere stuffed in my head, but do you think that I could draw that? It's like a triangle here and a triangle. Nah, it just doesn't happen. I don't have that connection yet to drawing and making something that actually looks like what's in my head. So one thing that I do is I go onto my phone and I look up watercolor of a whale tail, or drawing of a whale tail, or sketch of a whale tail. And you can look at a picture too. But what I find is if you find an example of a piece of art that somebody's already done, you can kind of see like how they've shaded and how they've drawn their lines and where are the highlights? Where do you leave the white, right? Like, where do you leave the white? Where is the sun catching that? So you need to leave it. That's the thing about watercolor. If you want really good watercolor, it's all about leaving that white. So it's not so much about what you're adding, it's what you're not adding, which is like, oh, the mind-bending part of it, right? But there are ways where you don't have to worry about that. This is when you're kind of starting to get into the art. But I look at this page, I did the stuff. If I had made this and I jacked it up, as Tiffany Louder would say, if I jacked it up, do you think you guys would be looking at this right now? No, I'd have been like, next paper. Or, you know, maybe I would have flipped it over and I would have just done some watercolor and just used the paper for something completely different. And it's totally fine to do that. Okay, so the Maui book that was mentioned earlier, this is my traveler's notebook. And you can see that I did a lot of watercolor in this book. Like, look how pretty that is, right? And then I practiced some of my lettering, and I did a lot of stamping. So that is what I wanted to do with you today. Oh, let's see. Alice says, not me, other Alice. She said, I did my first watercolor background with Vicky Booten and art crayons a few days ago. Way out of my comfort zone, but it wasn't bad. I kept telling myself it's only paper. Exactly. That's awesome. I love it. And the fact that you did it, you'll be so proud of that. Like, I'm proud of you for doing it. So one thing that makes watercolor so fun, Sandy says, oh, sure, now my husband wants to go for a walk. I'll have to catch the rest on replay. So one thing that makes watercolor fun is that you can use it for doing things that you don't necessarily have strong skills in. I will confess, I don't have the strongest coloring skills. I don't like using pencil crayons that much for coloring stuff, and I don't really have the knack for those Copic or alcohol ink markers. I just don't. So one thing that I do is that I will stamp things and then I will watercolor them in. And I'm able to get some really good effects by doing that technique. Just with stamping and watercoloring. And sometimes I will draw something. So I actually drew that. That's somewhat like the island of Maui. Don't compare it to an actual map because it's somewhat like an actual map. It's good enough for what we do. I was able to show the places that we went. But look at how fun the pages are. You see a lot of journaling in this book. We did so many fun things. And I really wanted my words to be able to take the stage in this book. But then I also wanted to accent the stories as we went along. And so that's what all of my graphics and stuff are in here. They're just accents. And yeah, so some of the pages is just a little bit of watercolor in the background. But when you look through the book, how gorgeous, right? How gorgeous. These whales, if you Google search right now, drawing of a whale, I'm pretty sure this image right here comes up, and I just copied it to my very best ability. And that's totally fine. I'm good with that. You know, and I was able to include all the fun things that we did in one little book, keep all the memories. And then when I came home, it's an implied map of Maui. I love that. When I came home, I was able to take those stories and put them onto the layouts that I wanted to make. Okay, so I said I had tips for watercolor and using it with our scrapbooks. So let's get to that. So I did two things here. So I've got these prepped ahead of time so that they could be dry or mostly dry. You got skills, girl. I have a couple. And I'm willing to play an experiment. I'm definitely willing to play an experiment. Like watercoloring the background of a traveler's notebook. And I will mention this traveler's notebook that I'm here putting on the screen so you can properly see it. This is mixed media paper, and it is from rocknotebook.com. So that's my friend Beth. And Beth makes fabulous traveler's notebooks. I always get her mixed media paper. And you can see it, like, you know, it's got a little bit of crinkling in there because it's mixed media, and literally every page has been soaked at least twice because I've watercolored fronts and backs of everything in the book. So if you want a recommendation, there you go. So yeah, I did a couple of things. I've got this stamped image of a flower, and I've also watercolored this. And I use watercolors in two different ways. So sometimes I'm testing out techniques or I'm trying to blend things and I'm trying to learn kind of how it works. And so I'll just kind of show you how I created that. And I have different watercolors that I take with me at different times. So the watercolors I always used to use were these ones. They're from Close to My Heart. They're just like a normal old paint palette, but I love the shades of blues and teals and greens that they have. It's a super nice palette for that. And I've used this a ton. I don't have a fancy brush. This one is, I literally don't even know from where. I wouldn't have paid a fortune for it because when you're an amateur artist, having really expensive tools isn't going to make the difference. It's a soft tip brush, right? It's not like the stuff that comes in your kids' art palettes, although I have used those paints. The paints are fine. The brushes that come in them with the hard wire, they're not hard wire, they're hard plasticky tips. Like, they're worse than a toothbrush. Like, seriously? And you're supposed to like paint something with that? I'm like, man, how does any kid ever fall in love with watercolor when those are the tools they have? Christy says Beth has different kinds of paper that you can select for your traveler's notebooks. She totally does. There are a few great choices. She has like the Tomo River paper. There's watercolor paper specifically that you can get. You can also get the mixed media. I tend to choose the mixed media because it gives me the most options. So that's why I choose those ones. So this is one of my paint palettes, and you can tell it's well loved. My other one here is this adorable little traveler's one. It is from Amy Tangerine. I will put all of the links in the description below. So in this adorable little kit, it has everything that you need for doing your watercoloring. So there's a pencil, there's a pen, there's a little sponge so that you can blot your little brush. There's a little tube, little container that holds your water in it. And like, it's super easy to use because you can see like the little skinny point on it. So it's easy to refill your water brush. And in here, you also see the little baby water brush that's in here and the colors. And then you've kind of got like these little spots where you can kind of, I thought it was for standing things. Maybe it wasn't. I don't even know. Yeah, I don't even know. But you can see you can also blend your colors here in the palette. So this little handy thing is the one that I used, I think, for that Maui book because I just needed something small that would go with me. And this little kit is the size of like a sunglasses case or something, and it's like totally adorable. So if you don't have one of these yet, I recommend them. I think they're super fun. And the paints are great colors and you can blend them all up. Let's keep falling out of there. I didn't snap them in very good. But anyways, I think that they're super fun. It's a really cute set and the colors are great. Like, it has all the kind of colors that you need, and whatever you don't have in the pot, you just mix up here. So yeah, there's only one shade of green, but you mix a little black with it, or you mix a little white with it, or you mix a little blue with it. And then you've got so many. Yeah, it's such a great deal. I know it's not an expensive palette. Like, what is it? Like 20, 25 bucks, something like that. It's like, it's not expensive. And then it kind of just gives you everything you need. So that's a great one. And then if you want to get a little swankier, yeah, so Christy said, I'm late to the party. Not sure if it was mentioned. Spritz your watercolors to activate them before you start trying to use them every time you get them out. So I usually only do that based on the colors I'm using because I tend to only pick like 2 or 3 colors. And so instead of spritzing them, I just dip into my water and then I like get them wet. These are my really, what I call my fancy watercolors. This was like a treat to myself. They are the, I can't read that. They're the Kuretake Gonzai Tambi, I don't know. They're really fancy. They're from Kuretake. Anyways, and they're fabulous. You do up your own little sample thing so you can see what the colors are in the palette. You can buy individual replacements to fill them. There's other sets. You can get bigger sets and smaller sets. They're kind of recognized as a really good one if you just want that step up just a little bit. And so when I go to use them, I do get my colors that I want a little wet so that it kind of lets the colors come up. And you'll notice that I actually use this as a blending tool all the time because it's right there with me all the time. It's just in the pack. So you get your color wet that you want, and then you can actually like blot out some of the colors so you can kind of really see. And depending on what you're going to color, like this, I was actually just trying to kind of color the area that my flower was going to be in. And you can always pick up more color and more color. And it depends on what kind of darks and lights you want. I'm not super particular about it, right? Like, it doesn't have to be. And this is definitely not fancy technique, but this is the same technique that I used a few minutes ago when I made this. And this looks pretty cute, right? Like, especially once we stamp a flower onto it. So I just wanted to show you, like, you saw, I just blobbed paint on there. Like, it doesn't have to be complicated. I'm sure that there's somebody that's like learned how to do proper watercolor, or they know how to do watercolor, and they are like averting their eyes right now. That's fine. That's fine. I'm not offended. I'm not offended at all, because as I learn new things and as I pick up new skills, it just gets better. It just gets more fun. So I'm good with it. Okay. So here's what I wanted to talk to you about. So when I did those pages, like the ones where I stamped them first and then I watercolored. It's really, 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 really important to let your ink dry, which is why I did this one here first. And I'm going to show you the difference between stamping first and watercoloring first and then stamping. So you do get slight differences, but that was how simple that can be. So oops, I'm gonna need those watercolors that I slightly tucked aside, not too far. So when I watercolor, I keep a paper towel handy so that I can blot, so that I can rinse out my brush. So when I dab on here, I can see, did I get my brush kind of clean? Good. And I actually usually have two pots, one that I use for rinsing and one that I use for like clean water, but sometimes I'm not that fancy. Let's just be real. So yeah, I'm gonna just grab some of my paint, and because I stamped this, now I can go in and I can color directly within the lines. And this is stamped onto watercolor paper. This watercolor paper, I believe, was from Stampin' Up. I am in all opportunities sourcer of supplies, so Stampin' Up, close to my heart. You've heard about all the things. I actually do lots of my shopping from scrapbook.com, and if you are looking for supplies, I will post affiliate links in the comments, and that will be for scrapbook.com most likely. Maybe Amazon if I need. So here I've done like a really base color on my rose or flower, and then I want to add like a little more definition. So I'm grabbing a little more color, still blotting it again. I almost never take my paint right from here and stick it on my thing, because sometimes it applies funny to your brush, and just by blotting it a little bit onto something first kind of lets it kind of soak into your brush a little bit better, so you're not going to get those weird streaky surprises where there's all of a sudden a whole bunch of ink in one spot that you weren't expecting. And then I'm not fancy with this, so I just kind of pick like part of my leaves that's going to get like the attention, I should say. And I don't overthink it too much. You can see this is a little dry, so I'm just gonna go in with a little more water. And after that, I want even a little more brightness, a little more dark in some areas, right? So that allows me to kind of get the different looks. And when this dries, oh, I'm just like always so impressed. I'm like, I did that? That looks pretty good. Don't you love it when you make something and you're like, dang, who knew? Well, that's kind of what this seems to do using watercolors. And I'm actually going to grab a tiny bit of this yellow and dab that kind of right in the center. It's going to add just a little bit of brightness right there. And yeah, I didn't get it wet, but that's okay. So pretty excited. I think that looks good. When it dries, it'll look even better. But let's go to this other one. This is that's the wet one that I just did. This is the dry one, and I'm going to show you the difference that you can do if, say, you're testing your watercolors. Sheila says, even blotting, I use way too much water, hence my aversion to paints. And I think it's just getting a brush that you trust and know. Like, I tend to use the same one a lot because once you know your brush, then it's good. And yeah, blotting off any extra. So you'll see, like, I put paint on here, I blot the paint from here to there, and it's just about getting that feel of how much wetness is being carried around on your brush. Okay. So I'm going to stamp this flower into this area. So imagine I was doing like a watercolor effect and I'm like, that's not really the colors I wanted, or something else. Well, you can always use it for doing some fussy cutting, right? You can always do some fussy cutting. So I'm going to take this stamp set. This is from Altenew. It's called Beautiful Heart, and it's actually a multi-layer stamp. And maybe I'll show you why multi-layer stamps are my favorite on another day, as we're going to be chatting every day. I'm really loving it. Loving the idea of it anyways. Hopefully this is all going to turn out good. Yeah, so then I'm going to lay that down, pick it up. Now, when I'm watercoloring, I said I stamp first and let it dry. But here's the top secret, most important thing. Be sure to have this ink. Gina K designs Amalgam Ink. It's not just black. It's called Amalgam Ink. It's black amalgam ink, but that means that you can use this with watercolors. You can use this with Copic markers. It does everything and it doesn't bleed. So let's stamp this up. Like here. I just had stamped this before the show, let it dry, and look at that. Like, it's not bleeding. Do you see any bleeding at all of that ink? No, absolutely zero. So that's why it's amazing. Okay, I'm gonna ink this, put that down into the corner. And that's not the greatest first impression. Part of it is because my paper is a little wonky right now. So when you're stamping on paper that's been a little bit wet, being able to use a stamp platform is definitely a hand up so that you can get right back into that perfect spot. Okay, so here we go. And now you can look at how cute that is, but you won't really understand how fabulous it is until we cut it out. So let's get some scissors. And yes, I'm doing the F thing on here, the F word, because fussy cutting is the F word in my opinion. I do not love fussy cutting, but we do it when it's important. So here we are. And I'm not sure, this stamp set may even have a die cut, but I don't have the die cut for it. So if I was doing like a lot of projects where I was going to cut out a ton of these flowers, maybe I would consider getting looking to see if they had a die for it as well. But you know, it doesn't take that long. Some people like crocheting, right, Heather? And, you know, if you have the patience for crocheting, you can probably have the patience for fussy cutting. That's what I figure. Okay. Now, so you'll notice that when I fussy cut, I kind of hold my scissors still and I move my paper around, which makes fussy cutting a whole lot better. So, and there we go. And look at the detail in that flower and the layers of the color. And yeah, it's not necessarily perfect, like you've shaded every leaf or anything like that, because it was literally just a little splash of color. But put this onto your page with your photos, with your layout, and that's going to be beautiful. Yeah. Let's see. Chrissy says, where have you found that amalgam ink? Straight from Gina K. I found it's not that easy to find. I did order mine from scrapbook.com. If they don't have it right now, I probably would just order it straight from Gina K, because dang, it is amazing. And beautiful. Last I looked online, they didn't have it, so I figured they didn't carry it. It could just be that they don't have it right now, or maybe they're not carrying it anymore. I'm actually really not sure. Yeah, but that is my watercolor trick. And so I told you I would have one more bonus thing worth the fussy cutting. I know. One more bonus thing that is what scrapbookers need when they're doing watercoloring, in my opinion. And that's this. This is the watercolor paper pad from Prima. And this is 12 by 12. It is the right size that I need. I got you, Christy. It's all good. It is the right size that you need. You just take your paper out of here. It's the right size to go and make your scrapbook pages. And it's like so easy. It's so good. So that is my best tip. That's the paper that I use for doing, I'm holding it up wrong, for doing this page. I did that watercolor paper using that paper from Prima. And it seems like a great paper, but I like the fact that it's already in the right size that I need. Here, let's try this. I haven't tried this little thing yet. I got some new software, so I'm playing with all the fun things. So yeah, those are some of my fun watercolor tips. Hopefully just seeing some of these things will make you go, oh, I could do that, right? Like some of these things are super duper easy. The paint, the color, all the things, right? Judy says, the flowers are beautiful. Sorry I'm late. Christy says, angels are singing 12 by 12 watercolor paper. I know. That's why I'm like, I have to show you. That is the best. So if you are a scrapbooker, this watercolor 12 by 12 paper pad, I love it because it lets me do all of the fun things as a scrapbooker playing with the watercolor. And so thank you so much for joining me for day number 1 of our Happy at Home series. If you have certain topics that you'd like me to cover, please go ahead and leave it in the comments because I'd really love to hear it. If you've enjoyed this today, please give me that coveted thumbs up. I would really love to receive that because it tells me and YouTube that this was fun for you. And best tip, it's only paper. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Best tip, it's only paper. And I think that as we get bogged down, it's so easy to forget that. But look at all the fun we can have when we just kind of let ourselves go for it. So hopefully this was fun. This inspires you to try it. Whether you are like raiding your kids' art stash to pull out their watercolors that they have, they totally work. Just saying, you totally can do that. You can try it on other stuff. One thing that you have to be careful about is not too much water. Don't try to go back over the same places too many times. If you don't have watercolor paper, it's just not made for it. So yeah, it's super fun. Sharon says, thank you. Diane says, thank you. It was informative. Christy says, I loved it today. I will be back tomorrow. Same place, same time. We're going to be here on YouTube. It's going to be awesome. And let's see here. If you would like to see more stuff from me, then please go hop onto my email list. I don't spam because I don't have time for it, but it's at scraphappy.org/subscribe. And that's where I do send out emails once in a while where I show all the fun things that are inspiring me or the fun things that we're doing for free. Obviously right now, this Happy at Home is a big part of it, but we also have a Scrapbook Live session. We have a Scrap Smarter session this month that I'm really excited about. So lots of good things. So go get on my list. ScrapHappy members, you already get most of this stuff, but if you want even more things from me, you can go get on that list too. So just checking in, missed it still at work. Will there be a replay? Yes, absolutely. There will be a replay. I got you, Deborah. And yeah, awesome. So see everyone tomorrow. Happy scrapping. I'd love to see what you make. So if you're on Instagram, you can go and tag me. It's at Alice Boll, Boll. So thanks. Awesome. And here we go. Have an awesome day, everyone. I hope this makes your day a little happier at home. Bye.